Welcome to the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast, a podcast specifically designed to help you heal after a toxic or narcissistic relationship. This podcast teaches you to use your subconscious mind to go from feeling stuck to set free. In here, you will learn how to use the power of your own mind to free yourself from emotional pain, move forward with confidence, and experience the inner peace you deserve in your healing journey after emotional abuse. I'm your host and subconscious reprogramming coach, Allison Dagny. So let's get started. Hello, everyone, and welcome to a new episode of the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast. Today, I have a very special guest with me, and I'm really excited about our discussion. So what I'd love to do is just turn it over to you, Sabrina, and I'll let you introduce yourself to our audience, who you are and what you do.
Yes. Hello. Thank you so much for having me, by the way. I so appreciate that.
Of course.
So my name is Sabrina Victoria. I own a company called Human Better 365. It's a human transformation company covering everything from time management, organization, structure. I predominantly work with female entrepreneurs who are, under six figures, trying to level up, under 5 employees, maybe just got started. Maybe you've been doing it for a little bit. A lot of times when you jump into entrepreneurship or coaching, there's this whole like shiny object, super excited about it and to help all the people. And then you turn around and you recognize, holy crap, like I have to become a marketing person. I have to become a social media person. I have to, be an HR person. I have to know money. I have to be sales. Like there's all this stuff that you don't really recognize when you first get into it that hits you. So I really dive into that world, and it obviously leaks into home life and personal, and it kind of goes across all areas of our life.
Yeah. And that's why I'm so excited to have you here, because I'm part of your Facebook group and I listen to your podcast, and we're going to link all of that up in the show notes too. But my main reason for having you here was because, of course, this is the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast, and you know my story and I know your story, but I want you to be able to share your story with my audience to give them some, hope and some inspiration, because you weren't always where you're at right now. And you came from a very different place in your life. And I would love if you wouldn't mind to share some of your story with us, from your humble beginnings to the abuse that you experienced and to how you ended up where you are today. And what I'd love to do is sort of weave in the things that you do to help other people now with, like you said, the organization and time management, productivity, and all of that, because I think all of that is really, really important for us to level up, to heal, to increase our own productivity in life and help us, end up with better relationships across the board with family and friends and work and all of that. So, a lot of times on my podcast, I focus on the subconscious mind, and I know you're really familiar with that too, but there's all kinds of other things that we can do to help us heal. So I want to kind of weave that in as well. So tell us your story, because I really want everybody to hear it.
Yeah. So I love starting at the beginning, because the beginning has a lot to do with, like you were saying, the unconscious mind, and really why I kind of ended up where I ended up for so long. So I was raised as a Jehovah's Witness, and everything was, okay until I got pregnant at the age of 20 with no husband. Emphasis on the no husband part, because Jehovah's Witnesses view that as a sin. And because of that, I was what's called disfellowshipped or disassociated or shunned. And that basically means within a very short amount of time of me announcing that I was keeping my baby, my entire family and my entire community, everybody that I had ever known, cut all ties with me. So I put emphasis on the decided to keep my baby part, because if I would have decided to secretly abort my child, my journey would have been totally different. And, that has it was a heavy price tag for me to pay to decide to to keep my child, which is just so weird to me. But anyways, I wound up going down this journey of a broke single mom, the stereotypical single mom life of no money, rolling balance of negative $172 in my bank account at any given day, eviction notices on my apartment door, car getting repoed out of the parking lot, just total despair, total darkness, sinner, hopelessness, suicidal thoughts, dealing with postpartum. So all the thoughts that go along with that. And I wound up meeting a man
And then
who
what?
came in on a white horse like they do, came in as the savior, came in as, let me help you, let me hold you, move into my place, leave your place, quit your job, start working for me. Don't worry about your phone bill. I'll take over your phone bill. Don't worry about your car. I'll get you a car. And before I know it, I turn around, and what seems to be on the outside a beautiful story of, being swept away is actually on the inside a relationship that is full of emotional, mental, verbal, sexual, and financial abuse to the 10th power. And I was completely naive and I literally just had no idea. I mean, it was so weird. I had no idea that what was happening to me was toxic, was bad. So anyways, 8 years in, I'm on the floor in the bathroom having a total mental breakdown, just so confused out of my mind because I'm being told that any woman would want this life, any woman would beg for this life, any woman would die for this life. And I'm over here like hating it. I'm hating all of it. The constant just badgering, the constant having to look over your shoulder, the constant walking on eggshells all the time, every single day. And so I was broke. I was broke in the bathroom, just crying, those of you, which this is what this podcast is, who've been in this situation, the broken, where you're on the ground and you're crying and screaming at the same time, where all of the emotion is just pouring out of you, is where I was. And I pulled out my phone. I always say, Google saved my life. I Googled, why is my boyfriend bullying me? Because I didn't know any other vernacular other than bully. And the entire world of narcissistic abuse, toxic relationships, codependency, high empathetic vibes just hit me right in the face. And this is the key. And I think this is the key that really helped me. As I'm going down this rabbit hole, right? So pretty much all of us go down this rabbit hole, especially if they're listening to a podcast like yours, of what is going on with my life. And I can't believe that I've never known this. And how could I be so silly to think or to not know all of this stuff? The mindset that I quickly turned to, which I think saved me, was instead of me going into this rabbit hole of he's bad, it's his fault, it's my parents' fault, it's my church's fault, it's my abuser's fault, it's everybody else's fault, I very quickly somehow, and I'm assuming it was some sort of a podcast or something that I had read, seen, or heard, realized that there was a shit ton wrong with me.
Yeah.
And that's why I ended up in that situation. So because I was able to pivot from he's bad, he did this, he did that, all of these traits of narcissistic abuse are him, and how could he, and that blame thing that we all do, which is fine. I very quickly was able to pivot into, where's my power? Where's my control? Where am I in all of this? What can I fix personally to be able to pull myself out of this situation? So within a very short amount of time, I opened up a secret bank account. I opened up a secret storage unit, and I started to make money and save money.
Wow. I mean, your story is really amazing because it just goes to show like you can pull yourself out. And that's exactly what you did. I think the whole mindset that you were saying, like that mindset set shift that you did so quickly, for most people, it takes a long time to get there. I know for me it did because it was, I went through that stage where it was all his fault, everything he did, right? And I'm not saying what he did wasn't his fault. It was his fault. He was abusing me just as your abuser was abusing you, right?
Yeah.
But we also, in order to heal and like you said, empower ourselves and take back control, like what is in my control here, right? Because as
Yeah.
long as we continue to put that on everyone else, then we are still the victim. We are still powerless. We have no control, right? It's when we do make that shift, which for some people it takes a little bit longer, right? And luckily for you, it was kind of a epiphany that hit you and smacked you in the face, and you were like, "Hold on, okay, I'm ready to get out of here," and you took action. So that is a phenomenal story. So thank you so much for sharing that, and we'll like kind of weave in parts of that as we're discussing this, but because I want to talk a little bit about because you said you set up a secret bank account and you had done other things, the storage unit, things like that. How did being an organized person, and not only organized like physically, but like mentally, like you had done some things to kind of pull you out of there that you could attribute to a lot of the stuff that you're teaching other people now. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Absolutely. So the very first thing that really helped me before I even found out I was in a narcissistic relationship is I started to keep a journal. So I didn't know what gaslighting was yet, but that's what was happening to me. So I was being told that these scenarios that I was pulling from the past of you've already done this or you already said this, and being told that I was stupid or silly or being overly dramatic or not remembering it correctly. And I'm like, I swear, like, yes, 100%. So I started to keep a journal. Just every single day, something would happen. Multiple things sometimes would happen. And I started to keep a journal of the day, the time, what happened, who was there, where we were. And when I found out about the narcissistic abuse, really relating that to the gaslighting. So I think the reason that I was able to shift so quickly is I was already, before even knowing anything, kind of taking some power back. Like I was like, this whole me second guessing my stuff, me not trusting myself is like a serious problem. How do I take back control of this? So that was one of the very first things that I implemented, that was structured, that was organized, that was a daily or multiple times a day that I was going back to. So I was creating a cycle of habit. Every time something would happen, journal. Every time something would happen, journal. Every time something would happen, journal. So all I did is I took that same thing that I had been implementing for probably about a year at that point, and I started to do the same thing regarding collecting money, regarding taking steps. I just found a couple of weeks ago an old, like, thing that I had written out. It was in the back of a journal, the very last page of just a random journal. And it was the very first notes that I had written down regarding money. Like I had actually written, like, I need this amount of money by this amount of time. What are some ideas of some things that I could do to make money? Approximately how much money could I make per thing? And then how many things do I need to sell in order to make this much money over the course of a year or 2 years or whatever it was? And although I don't remember that specific day of writing that specific sheet of paper, I do remember so many instances where I would make a plan like that. I would take a step towards that plan and then feel the power and the confidence that came with implementing a step. Like the first day when I went to go open up my bank account, oh my God, I was so scared.
Because you were still
I
with
was like,
this person, right?
yeah,
Yeah, because you were
I was
panicked.
scared out of my mind. I was like, there's probably a tracker on my car. Because he had me all like,
Mm-hmm.
I have a tracker. I have a spy watching you all the time. I have people all over this town that are keeping track of you. So I was freaking out that first day. I went like 2 towns over, like this weird bank that like's not on a main road, purposely
Mm-hmm.
to open up my bank account. And it was a step that I had written down, like, what are the things that I have to do? What's the plan? What's the first steps? The first step is I need my own bank account. So
Mm-hmm.
like, what does that look like? I have to find one. Where do I feel comfortable banking? Where do I feel comfortable going? I had to go to a different bank that I don't know, open it up in a weird town that I don't know in order to make sure. So I had to sit down and I had to create this plan of how to do what I needed to do, how to do it, and then take the action to go do it. And I did not put a time on it.
Mm-hmm.
I think one of the other things that I really did too in this situation that helped me, it wouldn't necessarily help you in any other situation other than this type of situation. I started to save money, not to leave. I started to save money to have choice.
Mm. Some financial freedom or independence for yourself.
Because this is what would happen. And I know so many of your listeners can relate to this. The love bombing and the trauma bond and the roller coaster is so dramatic that when it's good, you're like, what am I even talking about leaving this guy for? He's great. Like, he's awesome. Today was amazing. Why would I ever think about leaving this guy? And then it falls back down into this ridiculous hole of like, I need to leave right now. Like right this second, I need to leave. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah.
But when you hit that lull of like, I have to leave right this second, you have no money.
Yeah. What are you
So you
going to
can't
do?
leave.
Yeah.
So what I did is I was like, listen, I just need something so that because you always think it's never going to fall that low again. You're always like, this is just a one-time thing. All the other times I felt like it was that low, it really wasn't that low because you're gaslighting yourself. He's
Yeah.
gaslighting you. So I started to save so that if we fell into that hole again, I would then have a choice to leave if I wanted to. And because it wasn't so heavy, because it wasn't so like drastic or such a huge pivot for my life where I had to think of what am I going to do with my son? What am I going to do with my son's father? What am I going to do with my stuff? What is too much? So I just am like, let me just start saving some money so that if I have a choice. And that just felt good for me. It felt light, it felt non-invasive, it felt calm.
Yeah, it takes the pressure away a little bit because some people don't want to face the reality that they may have to get out. And because especially like you said, if it's an up and down where you are thinking, oh, things are great, and then they're terrible, and then things are great, and then they're terrible. I mean, that's that cycle of abuse that we go through. Then at least it sort of relieves some of that pressure when it's not like, oh, I'm creating a secret bank account to escape, right? But maybe I'm just going to create this secret side bank account just for my own personal needs if I should ever need it. You know, maybe you need something that doesn't have anything to do with that. You still have it, right? It's there because it relieves that level of pressure. So what I'm hearing and what you said was what happened in your mind was a lot of planning, organizing your thoughts, right? Figuring out what you need, what you want, and then actually putting that into action, taking a step or a baby step or some sort of action to move you in the direction of your plan, right? And so what do you feel like is the hardest part for people? Is it like the organizing in your mind, creating the plan, or taking action?
Taking action towards the plan. I think
I
it's
think
the
I have
hard.
to agree with that.
And it's it makes sense. Like, no shame on anybody who's going through this cycle, because, and I did this too. Like, I'd stop saving, I'd stop working, I'd stop hustling for, like, there'd be one day of just amazingness. And then that one day, even if the other days are rocky, it kind of like shifts through. And that one awesome day can actually shift through 2, 3, 4, 5 days. Then you're content for 2, 3, 5 days because it's the same rockiness that you're used to. So it's no big deal. So there's times when I was losing 2 or 3 weeks of productivity in saving money because of that one awesome day.
Yeah.
So it's kind of a mind fuck. Like, I don't know how to swear, but
Yeah.
it really is. Like, it is tough. I mean, it's mental.
Yeah.
It's mental. So you need mental capacity to organize, to
Yeah.
structure, to plan. You need your mind. And if your mind is being all fogged up with just lies and deceit and gaslighting, then yeah, it could get kind of heavy. You have to be smarter than yourself, and you have to be smarter than your partner. You
Yeah.
have to, like, really level up.
Yeah, you do. I can totally relate to that because in my story, I remember when I found out it was narcissistic abuse, and it was like the light went on for me, and I was at the point where I'm ready to start planning and get the heck out of here. And but I still remember that sort of, I don't know if cognitive dissonance or whatever, going back and forth in my head, like, well, maybe I'm making this out to me worse than it really is. And, oh, he's doing a 180 and he's acting all wonderful and nice. And maybe I'm just being overly sensitive or too dramatic about this all. And I mean, we'd been together for 20 years. So it was like, oh my gosh, look, I'm about to literally drop a bomb on an entire marriage and 3 kids and a house, and from what everybody thought was a wonderful life. And let's think about that, right? Because we're talking about that organization of the mind, right? And how you were able to make a plan and create some action steps, right? And it wasn't even like it was over time. Like, you were taking baby steps, you were putting a plan together and creating action. So this, I think, is really important for healing too, right? So let's fast forward to once you've made it out of that relationship, right? And now there's the healing part. There's the, oh my gosh, like, I made it out. I'm on the other side. Like, yay, like you conquered that mountain. But then there's like another mountain. It's like, oh no, now I have to heal from all of this. So I really want to talk about how organization in general, like in life, how, and I know you're a minimalist, and how you like want to have minimal stuff throughout your house to give yourself some space, right? Because it's important to think about, how does our physical areas, how does that affect our mental areas and our mental capacity too? So I guess after all of that going on and on, what do you feel like of organization, of time management, money management, minimalism, like all of that stuff? What do you feel like helped you the most in the healing stages after you left?
Money.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's a tough one, because especially in the female environment, it's just not kosher to go around talking about money. But honestly, I mean, one of the things that my abuser said to me all the time, he said 2 things to me all the time. He said, whoever has all the money has all the power. Do you have any money?
Right. So you have no power. Mm-hmm.
And then he would say, whoever makes all the money makes all the rules. Do you make any money? No.
Wow. No.
Because he wasn't fucking paying me
Right.
to work.
Exactly.
So, I mean, after getting drilled with that for well over a decade, 13 to 15 years, being told you'll be back within 6 months because you'll be living in the back of a dumpster, living in a cardboard box, being told you'll never make over $31,000 a year, which is just such an obscure number. Right.
Yeah.
And, so when I first left, and this is my personal story, right? This is my personal story. When I first left, I dove head first every second of every hour that I was not with my son and not sleeping. I took on the persona of a squirrel looking for nuts, just everywhere looking for money. I was digging for money every single day. And the more money, AKA freedom, I had, the stronger, the more confident, and the more courageous I felt. And there came a point, probably a year, 2 years, where I breathed, where I could like breathe. And I recognize that I can do it on my own. I recognize that I am capable, that I am powerful, that I am courageous. Everything he said was a lie, because there's always this thought process of maybe he was right.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe I was wrong. Maybe I am dramatic. Maybe I am overly emotional. And looking back, really recognizing that all the planning, all of the structure, all of the, weekly writing out to-do lists and marking things off and doing the next best thing, worked.
Wow.
It worked.
Yeah.
And the lightness was just, even till, all the way till today. It's just, I think back sometimes, I'm like, I can't believe people live like that.
Yeah.
There's people that are living like that right now, and they have no idea that there's like this other way of living.
Yeah. Well, and it
That's
sounds, yeah. And it sounds like, he was conditioning you throughout the time you were together to believe all these things about you so that you would not leave, right? Because if you believe that you're incapable, or you believe that you're going to make 31, only live off $31,000 a year, like all these things, right? That's to instill fear in you, keep him in a position of power, keep you in a position of inferiority and dependency on him, making him the authority on your life, right? Versus you knowing what that is. And then all of a sudden you stepped out and were like, hold on, I'm going to discredit all of these lies. Like, I think that's the key there. I think a lot of times people don't necessarily discredit the lies. How did you get to the point where you were like, hold on, no, this isn't true. Like, I am capable. I can do these things. Like, how did you get to that part of your life when you were able to do that?
Yeah, it takes time. It
Okay.
really does. It sounds, first of all, in the beginning, it sounds impossible. But when you're in the middle of it, it just sounds stupid. But it really does. It takes discipline. It takes time. It takes self-awareness. It takes a lot of reading, listening to podcasts like this, diving into other women's stories who have similar stories as you, even just hearing you repeat that, like mom, 3 kids, for somebody who's a mom with one child, and that child was not the son of the man I was living with, hearing your story makes my story lighter. And this is why it's so important to share, because it's like, looking at my story where I was, I'm like, there's no way I could leave. Like, we're fully dependent. But then I hear something like this, where I'm like, 3 kids and married to the father. Holy crap. How did she do that?
Yeah.
That's even heavy. I wasn't even married. So it's so important to be diving into stories of people who have done things similar to you, and recognizing that there are people all over the world who are pivoting and making changes to their life when they recognize that their partner is no longer serving them in a positive way. And they are sitting down and they are creating plans. They're actually creating a plan to leave. Whether it's a long extended plan like mine, it was 4 years, or if it's a short plan. I mean, some people literally just find out and then within 2 or 3 months, they're just like out of here. They move in with mom and dad. Yeah. So it's like, what is your plan? Like, what do you have to do? What is your journey? What is your story? And mine was longer, I took 4 years from the day I Googled, which I don't know the day, like the month I Googled, till when I left. 4 years having to play a double life.
Did you plan? So like, obviously that 4-year stretch of time, we have an understanding about how that happened and all the planning and organization and action taking that you did. When you finally got out of that toxic relationship, did you, because you said, the discipline, the self-awareness, the podcast, the books, all that stuff for healing, did you have a plan in that part too? Were you like, look, I am gonna do this, 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 this? And did you have a plan there? Or was it sort of like, I'm just gonna do all the things and absorb all the things that I can in order to move myself forward?
Are you saying
Afterwards,
when I was
when you
leaving or
start,
after?
no, afterwards, like when you were out of the relationship, and maybe this goes back to the money thing where like the planning to move you to a more empowered state.
Yeah, I mean, that's all it was. So I did research. I did a ton of research I Googled, I mean, if you want actual steps, I Googled ways to make money from home, ways that single moms make money, how to make quick cash in under 30 days. And I just wrote notes and notes and notes of all the things that resonated well with me that I could do, right? Some of them were like, be a gamer. I'm not actually being a gamer, but you have to like read stuff and listen to stuff, write down the things that resonate with you that you are capable of doing, and then try it.
Yeah.
So one of the first things I did was Airbnb. I had never done it before. I had no idea how to do it. Low key scared to do it. Did a bunch of research and literally just opened up 2 bedrooms in my house. I went to Goodwill, or where did I get my mattresses from? I don't even remember. I think Walmart, got 2 mattresses. I went to Goodwill, like 3 Goodwills, and I got all gray sheets, gray pillowcases, gray towels, gray, mismatched, but just all gray for both. I think it cost me like maybe $1,000 to get both rooms set up. And I was charging $30 per room. I was sold out every single day immediately because I priced myself low. So I was literally making $1,800 a month. That was my rent.
Wow.
Yeah.
And that's just because of Google. Like you literally just used what was at your disposal. Like, look, we have, like you said, there are books, there are podcasts, there is a free Google search that you can do every single day on any type of topic you choose.
Yeah. So I did that research. What could you do? Then I'm like, okay, let me just see about Airbnb. I watched 3 videos on Airbnb. What do I need to set up an Airbnb? Watch 3 videos. Okay, you need a bed, you need sheets, you need snacks, you need a directory, you need whatever. I wrote it all down and I said, okay, how much money do I want to invest in this? If anything, do I even want to invest in this? I don't know. So then I went to Airbnb and I'm like, I want to rent a home in Boca. Are there any homes in Boca even being rented? I don't even know. So I looked it up as a guest who would want to rent. What are they renting for? They were renting for anywhere between $45 to $90 a night. I'm like, cool, I can do that. I did the math. 45 multiplied by 30, how much is that? I'm like, oh my God. Even if I do half of that, that is worth the investment. Yeah. So I went all in. I'm like, I make a decision. You have to research, you have to plan, you have to make a decision, and then you have to act. You have to do the thing. So I just went out literally that day. I made a decision that day. I'm like, I'm doing it. Went out, got 2 mattresses, went around, got sheets, set it up. Within a week, I had 2 Airbnb set. That's it. I priced myself low at $30. By the time I ended, I was at $45 to $50 a night. Because you raise your price once you get enough reviews. And yeah, and so I did that with everything. I did that with eBay. I started a Fiverr. Fiverr was another way. I made a ton of money on Fiverr.com, ton of money on eBay. OfferUp. I was doing garage sales and flipping stuff out of my house. I mean,
There's so many options.
there's money out there, but you have to figure out what works for you. You can babysit, you can dog walk, you can clean houses. I mean, there's so many things that you can do outside of a 9 to 5 to make extra money, to make sure that you survive and you don't have to go back to that relationship or fall into another relationship that's very similar. Because when a woman does not have money, there's room for misalignment with partners.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
There
And
just is.
you're not in a position, and I guess power isn't the right word because that's like what your ex was saying, but there is some level of control that we have when we have our own money. I mean, that's just a reality. And, that was something that I was really scared about because I was a stay-home mom for years. And when I left, I was like, I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if I'm going to have to go back to work. I don't know. We had a business. And so that was good because I ended up being able to take over the business because it was like a side business that I was running anyway. So I was able to secure that in the divorce. But I know not everyone has that. I know not everyone has that that good fortune. So it's doing these things like you're saying that help empower you so that you have your own wallet, your own sources of income to do the things that you need to do to either like get out of a relationship or prevent you, because now you're not reliant on someone else. Because think about when you started into that new relationship with that guy, he swooped in at a time when you were really vulnerable. Oh, I'll pay for this. And oh, you don't have to worry about that. And you can come live in my house and I have a job for you. Like, wow. Like I'd be thinking the same thing. Like, oh my gosh, this is my meal ticket, right? Like, and he's wonderful and he's nice. And this is going to be like, a fairy tale, like amazing. But doing these things, like that was the one thing I said a long time ago was that when I became a stay-home mom, because I'd already been in the workforce for like 5 years, as soon as I became a stay-home mom, that was the end. Like that was the end of my independence. That was the end of my freedom because I now was totally reliant on him. And I'm not saying everybody who's in a relationship with someone who makes money and they stay home is going to lose their freedom. I happen to be with someone who was a very bad person and who was an abuser and took advantage of that, as were you. So the discipline, the self-awareness, I think part of it too, I don't know what you think about this, but I think part of it is discrediting the stories that we have in our heads that, oh, I couldn't clean houses, or, oh, I could never run an Airbnb, or, oh, I'm not equipped for that, right? We have to discredit those stories too, because if we keep telling ourselves that, we're not going to get to the point of being able to create that plan and take that action, right?
Yep. You know what really helped me with this is, do you ever listen to Lisa Nichols?
That name sounds really familiar.
She is a fabulous, powerful African-American woman who is just a brilliant storyteller, single mom, led a very similar life, not quite, but like similar. I remember distinctly, and this will stay with me for forever. I was listening to one of her spiels, and she said something to the effect of, when she was saving money, she was working really, really hard saving money. She was renting out a room in her apartment, or vice versa. She was renting from either way, she had a roommate, and her roommate smoked. And she said she would have to put a towel around, like towels around her door and underneath her door, and close all of her vents to not be around all of the smoke. She would go into the regular side of the house and it'd be all smoky. And she said, did I enjoy those conditions? No, I hated it. However, you have to be willing to be uncomfortable to make your dreams come true.
That is so true.
And it just stayed with me. It's like, these narcissists, a lot of times they make you kind of comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as horrible as it was, there was comfort. I didn't have to like clock in at 9 o'clock. I could go in at 6. I could go in at 8. I could go in at 10. Sometimes we went out to breakfast and we wouldn't go until 11. You know, there was flexibility in my day. I was driving around a beautiful white, fully loaded BMW. I mean, that's comfortable.
Comfort. Yeah, absolutely.
You know, anytime I wanted a massage, because I'm stressed to all hell, he'd just hand me cash. He'd hand me $120 cash. Go anywhere you want, girl. I got you. That's comfortable.
Mm-hmm.
So there's things that they do. It might not be to that, or it might be even higher than that, right? We lived in a really nice house. There was never anything wrong. He took care of everything in the house. He took everything with the car. It was comfortable. But the idea is the mental, emotional, sexual, and financial abuse worth the comfortability? And this is where we know that this invisible abuse that some people say is and some people say isn't, it is. Mm-hmm. Because nobody in their right mind would leave comfortable for something that's invisible, unless the something that's invisible was so bad.
Yeah. It has to be the fear. Yeah, the fear of staying has to be worse than the fear of the unknown, right? If you leave. Yeah. I can still remember when I told my best friend that I was divorcing my husband before I had told him. I sat down with her at a restaurant and I told her, and she looked at me and she said, "You're just going to get up and leave that big, beautiful house?" Yep. And I said, yep. Fuck that big, beautiful house. Yep. I'd rather live under a bridge with someone who treats me good than live another day in that house. And that to me, that's where I had that epiphany, was like, absolutely not. Like, I was losing myself. I was losing my identity. I had no freedom. I was completely in a cage and in control, under his control. And I was like, so over it. So it's, you know, I love that phrase that you said about that Lisa Nichols said, but we have to reach a state of being uncomfortable or we will never change. We will never change. Yeah. It's just 100. The truth. I mean, and a lot of times, yeah, go ahead.
You just said something that reminded me, one of the things that triggered another trigger, right? Because we have lots of triggers that get us to the point of leaving. It's never just like one thing. There's usually a few things and then maybe one main thing. But what you just said reminded me of a conversation that I had with my ex. We were driving down the highway and there was a lottery billboard to win the lottery. It's like an insane amount of money. He's like, "Oh my gosh, what would you do if you won that money?" The very first thing that I thought of was, I said to myself, I would leave your ass immediately. Yeah. The day that I won, if I had a check or didn't have a check, I would just leave. I didn't say that out loud, obviously. I said something else. But that was another thing of like, it's just money. That's the issue. It's just, I don't have any money. If I had money, I would not be here. There's no love. There's no affection. There's no emotion. There's no attachment. There's no love. It's just a lack of money. That's the only thing that's keeping me here. And when I realized that question, and the instant thought that I had was my trigger of like, holy shit. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason I'm here, because I have to be. I'm stuck.
Yeah, you didn't have resources, right? So we can't do a lot of things if we don't have tools and resources, which is why I love what you do and all the things that you bring to the people who you help in Human Better 365 and on your podcast and all that stuff, because you're teaching people that it doesn't have to be the same way it's always been. Like, I was just listening to your podcast the other day on multitasking and productivity, and how you can literally not be productive if you're multitasking. And I was always one of those people, especially in my marriage, where I was constantly trying to multitask and tried to do all these things. I would break dishes, I would run into things, and then he would always accuse me of being, careless and irresponsible because I was trying to be everything. And it was like I was totally unproductive. So I love that because I'm learning now, even like, and I have been learning for the past several years, that it's okay to not do 14 things at one time. It's okay to just focus your intentions and focus your energy on one thing and be successful at that and move on to the next, which brings me to how we can use that as far as our healing goes too, right? So like people are hearing this stuff. People are hearing like money's important. We need it to move on. We need it to help ourselves heal. But like we don't have to do the money and the yoga and then this and the healing mindset. Like we don't have to do and throw everything in the pot at one time. We can literally just pick one and focus there.
Yeah.
So that's what I think is super, super important. So I love the messages that you have. I love how you bring all this stuff kind of really cohesively together. And you've been able to turn a really awful situation all the way back from, being that single young mom who was shunned from her family to now you're turning this into helping other people to support their dreams, to support their visions. So what is the biggest thing that you would tell my listeners as far as like, okay, a lot of the people who are listening have experienced very similar stories to you and mine, and they're trying to heal from all of the lies that have been pressed into their minds and all of the limiting beliefs that they can't make it or they won't be able to do this or they can't start a business or an Airbnb or whatever, right? What would you tell those people?
You can't unknow something that you know.
You can't unknow something that you know. Okay, so expand on that a little bit.
You just learned a bunch of stuff here.
That's right. Yes.
You can't pretend like you're naive. You can't pretend like you didn't know. You can't pretend like you're stupid. You can't pretend you're stuck or it's impossible because you just listened to the whole podcast. So you just listened to a whole podcast of a woman who was in a prison where she had no money and her abuser had her convinced that she was being watched every moment of every day, whether it was through GPS tracking or whether it was through somebody. And that woman still, over the course of a long period of time, 4 years, still was able to create a plan and still was able to escape. So you can too. So you can't pretend to not know that. You now know.
I love that. And that is so inspiring because a lot of people get stuck in a mentality where they think it's impossible. There's no way that that's out there for me. But I'm here to tell you, I'm the story too, right? I'm the story too. I never thought I would ever be an author. I never thought I would ever have a podcast. I never thought I would be helping other people in the same way like you are. And it is possible, right? So we have to sort of start discrediting those things. And when you know something, right, you can't unknow it. Now you are able to take that with you and use it, right? Use the tools, use the resources, use the information to help yourself along your journey. I love that. So thank you. Tell me, I always ask every guest on my show something that not a lot of people know about you, Sabrina.
Oh my gosh. What? Something that not a lot of people know. Oh my God. Everybody knows everything. What is something that not a lot of people know about me? Oh, I'll share one that probably nobody knows.
Okay.
When I don't think I've ever said this out loud ever on a podcast.
Okay. Do you feel comfortable?
When I was, how old was I? Maybe 27-ish. When I moved to Florida, I got a nose job. This is not my nose.
Oh, well, it's beautiful.
Thank you.
I love it.
It had a big bump on it. I had a big witch's nose. And it's hereditary through the family. My dad had it, his dad had it. It's more of a manly nose. And so I had the hump shaved off. And I don't think anybody knows that.
Well, everybody knows it now. And as long as you love it and you're cool, then that's all that matters, right?
There you go. That was good. All right.
Oh, you're amazing. I love you. So tell everyone that, well, first of all, thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing all of your story and all of your wisdom with us and inspiration, right? I find your story very inspiring, and I think a lot of people need that these days. So thank you. Tell me where people can find you, how they can connect with you, what you're up to, so that if they want to reach out, they can.
Yeah. So I love to send people just to my website, sabrinavictoria.com. That's my name. Has all my stuff on there. The thing that I am most proud of at the moment that I am working diligently on is an enormous community called Her Nation. I am working on building the largest all-female community in the world. If you go to our Facebook group, it is hernation.life, and you can join us. It is a room full of women who are up leveling, who are open to suggestions, who are evolving, who are cycle breakers, and who are, pivoting. They're trailblazers. They're changing it up, and they're doing things differently than their generations previous to them have done. And they're excited about it. And it's an extremely active group. I'm super proud of everything that we've done and everything that we're building. And any listeners here who are looking to up level in any capacity, I
Yeah.
encourage you to.
I'm in there. I'm in that Facebook group and I love it. And it is a wonderful place to be. And I think the takeaway here is that if you can create it in your mind, you can create it in reality, right? If you can think it up, if you can be inspired by someone, if you can get someone's ideas, or if it, triggers some sort of transformation in you, or inspires you to write a book or start a blog post or a Facebook group, whatever, right? Be inspired, use other people, use the tools, use the resources that you have, and make something, right? That's the wonderful thing that we have as human beings, is we are creators, and we're able to do things that if we can just think it over, we can just, and that's what you were saying, like everything that you did, you created in your mind first, right? You
Yeah.
created it in your mind, and then you put it on a plan, and then you made it happen. And so I love that you're able to share all your inspiration and wisdom with us today. Is there anything else that I didn't cover that you wanted to mention?
I love that you're saying this, because I was actually just going to cut you off, because I'm being pulled to share this one last part of my story for some reason. So I try really hard to listen to my gut when that says,
Okay.
if you're okay with that.
Absolutely. 100%.
Okay. So for those of you that are listening and who are working on a plan to get out, bravo. For those of you that are listening, working on a plan, and the plan doesn't seem to be working so well, this story is for you. So when I opened up my bank account and I first started saving money, within a year of starting my little side businesses, of my little coaching business, my little eBay store, my little OfferUp store, I had saved $6,000 over the course of a year, which is not a lot of money in a year, but for me, it was a lot. I wanted to low key brag to my abuser. I was like, he always made me feel like I was stupid and dumb and I didn't know anything and I couldn't do anything. And I wanted to low key, I was just so proud of myself. Like I was just overcome with joy. And just in a stupid moment, he was coming up behind me and I didn't shut my bank account screen fast enough. And he saw that I had $6,000. And because of that, he cut off my little weekly allowance. So to work for him full time, more than full time, he was paying me $250 a week. And that $250 a week would pay for groceries, my gas, my insurance, whatever other my son, miscellaneous. Long story short, I had no money at the end of every month, and he had it convenient like that. So when he saw I had $6,000 saved up, he thought I was skimming off the top. He thought that I didn't have the expenses I thought I said I had. So he cut me off. He cut that $250 off for 6 months. So I had to start using my $6,000, which meant that my bank account drained back down, even though I was working for him full time for free now, and then also still working my side business. So this obviously hit me emotionally. This hit me mentally. It was a whole shift in the way that I was doing things. And my money went down while I was trickling money in. It was this whole thing. And eventually got back on my feet and started saving again. 2 years go by. I saved $13,000 in my secret bank account. He doesn't know about it still. I call my son's father because he was not my son's father. I call my son's father and I say, hey, I have money saved up. I am leaving my partner. I just want you to know I'm super scared. I'm literally freaking out. And my son's father goes, awesome. Good for you. Girl power. So proud of you. Good job. I will help you in the best way that I can. Within a month, my son's father calls me up and he says, hey, can I take our son on a camping trip? I say, yes, 100%. That would be great. Side note, he had started spending time with him right around this time. He had left for years and years and years and years, and he had just started coming back into his life. So I was like, yes, 100%, take him on a camping trip. That would be great. Long story short, he didn't take him. He did take him on a camping trip. He also simultaneously decided to just keep him. So he wrote me a long ass email that said, thank you so much for taking care of our son for the past 11 years. I got it from here. Peace.
What?
Yeah. So a whole long story. It's a ridiculous story. Long story short, $18,000 in lawyer fees. I had $13,000 saved up. $18,000 in lawyer's fees. So now I am negative $5,000 in bank in credit cards trying to get my son back, in legal fees over the course of a year, completely devastated. I'm being mentally, emotionally abused, that fog. I'm fighting a custody battle, which I'm sure you understand, that fog. Everything shut down. I'm just right back where I was, just devastated. I'm in the car. I had just paid my last check to my lawyer off of my credit card because I had no money left. And I have this piece of paper. It's a 17-page child contract for this $18,000 on the days that my son could go with his father. It was the stupidest thing ever. And I'm crying all dramatic in the car, just freaking the hell out of the universe hates me. I can't catch a break. Like, I'm doing all the things that Tony Robbins is telling me to do. I'm showing up. I'm working hard. I'm doing the things. I'm playing house with this crazy person. I'm trying to be an awesome mom. I'm trying to run a side business. I'm like, I am working my ass off, getting 3 to 4 hours of sleep. The universe hates me. God hates me. This is my punishment. This is what I get for being a sinner. This is what I get for being a slut. This is what I get for being a whore and having a child out of wedlock. Like, all these things, right? And I think to myself, I guess I just have to give up.
Oh my gosh. I'm sorry.
And in that car, while holding that piece of paper, I had to make a decision. Am I going to fucking do this again? Or am I going to just give up? And this is just my life. Because people live in abusive relationships. Like, I know that. Like, people live like that all over the place. There's probably neighbors right here that are living in situations like that, and they're alive and they're fine. And I decided while sitting in that parking lot that I would continue to try to get out until the day that I die. Because I never wanted there to be a point in my life looking back thinking, what if? What if I just would have tried one more time? So I did it again. And within a year, I was able to collect $31,000. And on a random day in June, I left.
Wow.
With my son, our clothes, and my bicycle. And I started all over again with a mattress on the floor. So for those of you that are planning, for those of you that are listening now and you're like, I am freaking planning. I am doing the things. I am trying to work 2 jobs. I am trying to organize and structure and journal. And it's not freaking working. It's not going fast enough. I am here to tell you, living proof that the universe is crazy. And that it always doesn't work in your favor. And that there are going to be bumps and bruises, and it's going to seem impossible, and you're going to want to pull your hair out, and you're going to want to give up. but you can't.
No.
You
Wow.
can't. You can't for your future self, because I'm telling you right here from personal experience, I am 40 years old. And if I would still right now be in that situation, how devastating. How absolutely devastating. Because look at all that I have created now that I am free.
Yeah.
And that is exactly what you are going to be missing out on if you don't continue to try again and again and again until. People are successful not because they do hard things. They are successful because they do hard things until.
Yeah. Wow. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hear the pain in that story. And I'm so sorry that you had to go through that. But I see the light in you, and I see just how you have transformed something so absolutely devastating because of your ability to pull yourself out of the darkness and never giving up. And, you know, you got your son back and you got out, and now you are spreading your light to the world, and you are inspiring people. And I'm hoping that even if just one person hears this story today, that it makes a shift in them and lights a fire or starts a spark, right? Because that future self of the Sabrina today can look back at that person and hold her and feel sorry for her and have compassion for her and understanding for her and thank her for never giving up, right? But also that old version of Sabrina can look at you, the current future self, right? And be like, wow, right? And that's what other people can see too. So I love that. And I'm so grateful for you to be here and so thankful for you sharing that. I love when people have those inspired thoughts and feelings and emotions to share, because it only helps other people. So thank you. All right. So again, we can find Sabrina on the Facebook group, Her Nation life. And I'm going to also link your podcast and that Facebook group and all of that, all the things I will link in the show notes. If you'd like to reach out to Sabrina, please do so. And can't wait for our next conversation. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you for being here with me today in the Emotional Abuse Recovery Podcast. I hope you found value here with me. If this podcast episode was helpful to you, I'd love for you to hit subscribe and leave me a review. My goal is to help you go from feeling stuck to set free. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook, and you can check out whentearsleavescars.com for more resources and information to help you with your own emotional abuse recovery. Until next time, here's to believing in